Hello and welcome to the F1 Rolling Start podcast.
You got it that time.
I'm so excited that you have joined us this week as we talk all things F1. My name's James.
I'm Ben.
And we are going to jump into it because the season just started with the opening race in Bahrain, and it was absolutely boring.
I was going to say, or did it start?
Yeah, no. I had a Groundhog Day.
Yeah. We were talking about this before we jumped on here. If you're a dedicated F1 fan, which if you're listening to this podcast, you are, I would say you're allowed to lament a little.
Yes, 100%. Take a moment of silence.
Take a moment
for a crap start to the 2024 season.
It was tough.
Here's the thing.
And I love Max. And I love the domination. But when we're 8 laps in, 9 laps in, 10 laps in, and the front runner is ahead by a second a lap.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments where I was like, what?
This is
what is everyone doing?
Yeah.
How is this possible? He's faster than last year. He's quicker. There's more of a gap. Last year, he finished
Ferrari
the race.
isn't eating its wheels every race. Mercedes got on top of a brand new design, and Red Bull came to the field completely with a brand new aerodynamic design. Yet somehow, if you were to take the 3 off of last year's season and put the 4 of this year on 2024, you could tell us it was the same. Matter of fact, they're more dominant than they were. Max led his teammate last year by 11.5 seconds.
Yep.
This year, he led his teammate by
double
22.5 seconds. You told me by Mercedes by 40.
Yeah, Mercedes was over 40 seconds back. Ferrari, which finished 3rd and 4th, was 25 seconds. I mean, you're talking like the it's almost. And here's the thing. I'm like lost for words. I'm stuttering. It's not Red Bull. Yes, it's the car. Yes, it's Adrian Newey. We all know that.
We love it. We know that.
But Checo only finished 3 seconds ahead of Ferrari.
Correct.
It's the combination of Max and the car that is literally untouchable. So obviously, like I'm here for the I don't know what I'm here for. I want there to be competition at the sharp edge.
We're here out of loyalty at the moment. I think that's it. We are
that's
F1
a good
loyalists.
Point. We are. It's a great sport.
100%. Here's the thing, Ben.
Yes, James.
We watched 24 hours of, well, not the entire 24 hours, but we watched all of this practice.
There's been
we
so
heard
much.
all this stuff. Mercedes was sandbagging. They had barely had the stuff turned up. What was it? McLaren didn't even bring a pair of soft tires.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're going to have. All of this stuff. Oh my gosh.
Rubbish.
RB. They're amazing. It's going to be incredible.
It's a lie.
Were you expecting that race on Sunday?
No, I was. Here's the thing. Let me just go to free practice and then to qualifying. So in free practice 1, Danny Ricciardo's fastest in an RB.
Literally, bonkers.
And we're
already like, yes, this is what we're waiting for.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The grid shakeup has begun.
FP2, it's Hammy who's fastest. We're like, whoa.
This is where I changed my fantasy lineup. This is exactly the moment I changed my fantasy lineup. I was like, you beat me. Oh my gosh, so bad. Let's take a moment. Let's pause. If you want to join our F1 Fantasy League, it's not too late. If you have a team, you can bring it in as it is. Your points that you've scored will be added. I am in 5th place.
I think I'm in 5th place. You're, I think, in 6th place.
Wow, that hurts. I actually think I'm beating you. I'm going to fact check you.
You're beating me. I checked.
Anyway, you can join us. Check out the show notes. You can join us there. Also, while you're doing that, go ahead and subscribe and like our podcast on whatever platform you're on. If you enjoy listening to our incredibly beautiful and ASMR type voices, then go ahead and send this to a friend. We'd love to hear what they think about our podcast as well. But yeah, Mercedes comes out and they top. It's Hamilton, FP2, which is the practice session that's most.
Wait, hang on a second. You beat me.
I know. I
No.
just let you get there. Yeah, you're losing. Loser.
3 points. 3 points. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, it's just, you and I are Mercedes and Ferrari last year right now.
Oh god.
I'm coming. Yeah, who's winning the league right now? It is led
BG.
by BG Brian Gonzalez.
Well, he had Max and RedBull.
Yeah, and he's closely followed by Undressing and Gunther's Picks. That's a legendary name. Anyway, you can join that. Check it out in the show notes. But FP2, Hamilton tops it, followed by Russell. Russell's right on his heels. So we're like,
Max was
Mercedes
like 5th or 6th fastest.
Max couldn't get his feet together. The car was all over the place, wasn't happy with the balance. Comes back in FP3. Max tops it.
Yeah, finally. So, but it was.
And what difference did all that make?
It didn't make any difference. We go to qualifying, and in qualifying, first round of qualifying, the 20 drivers, 1st and 20th, is separated by a second.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this moment where you're like, oh my God, the grid is so tight.
We're tight.
It's so close.
Yeah.
Only a second separating 20 drivers. That is separating 20 drivers. Are you serious? So it gives you this hope that the teams have gotten their feet together. You're combining that with FP1 and 2, where there's all this mix up in the who's the quickest. You know, Alpine finished 19th and 20th. So unfortunately for them, but they're only a second back. And then Hulk and Haas are like,
dude, Hulk's in the top 10.
But he could have been higher. He
was on used soft.
So
we're like, oh, what is happening?
So testing, free practice, qualifying, it paints this picture that ultimately is just unreliable because it doesn't translate to race pace.
Mm-hmm. As
much as you want testing and free practice and qualifying to actually transfer to race pace, it doesn't. And in the race, by lap number 10, we have Max, who's 7-8 seconds ahead.
Yep.
And then you've got Checo, some of the Ferraris, Merc, kind of hashing it out in the back. And really what we got as far as a result was Groundhog Day, déjà vu, whatever your term is for last year, which as a fan, celebrate how dominant a single sports person can be, but also lots of questions for the rest of the grid.
Yeah, 100%. The drivers didn't change from year on year. First time in F1 history where drivers didn't change from year on year. The grid didn't change either.
No.
We heard all this talk about people coming out this year, big changes. The only thing that changed is that we don't have Alfa Romeo anymore. It's now Kickstake F1 Sauber team. And we don't have AlphaTauri anymore. We now have Wiesek Hashap Racing Bulls.
We do.
RB. Massive development. It's not that they didn't make any leaps and bounds over the course of the winter. It's that the tide raises all ships.
They all made leaps and bounds.
All made leaps and bounds.
Unless you're Alpine.
And so, for instance, unless you're Alpine, you went backwards. You were like, I don't even want to be a ship. I want to build a house on the sand.
They were 4th a couple of years ago.
Yes, dude. They were 4th.
I was like,
yes.
Oh my God.
They were what McLaren is now a few years ago. That's what everyone was saying. That's when Fernando was like, see ya. Okay. Max's qualifying run from last year in the RB19, which is, we can all agree, was the most prolific car in F1 history. RB19, his qualifying run wouldn't even got him into Q3 this year.
That's insane.
So there's been massive, massive leaps. But we are not seeing what everyone wants to see, and that is racing at the front, competitiveness across the field, up and down, all 10 teams.
Yeah.
Part of it is Max. Yes. Max is like, the way he drives is like, have you ever played a racing video game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you turn off all of the assists.
Yeah.
And you can't even get away from the line.
Yeah.
You just crash the first corner.
Yep.
That's everyone else. Max has all of the assists on, except it's just natural ability. And he just nails it every single time.
And this is where I want to be aware of the moment that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
because we are in a moment where we are witnessing once in a generation greatness.
100%.
And so this does not happen.
No.
Even when you have generational greatness in Hamilton, in Alonso, on the grid, the combination of the man and the car only comes around.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Max, at this point, we're just losing words to describe how him and that car are so, they're just a single entity.
But we've never seen dominance like this. Even in Mercedes era, when it was like Hamilton is the man, and he was the man, he didn't win Max has won 18 out of the last 19 races.
I mean,
that's
crazy. How do you even talk about it?
He is, if he continues on this streak, which based off of Saturday, he's going to continue on this streak.
For as much as everyone wants to say, like, our car had a bunch of issues, we'll be different.
Oh,
like, lies.
Codswallop.
Stop.
We will get to a point where if he wins 22 races, 23 races in a row, that's now he's literally gone an entire season of F1 without losing a race. That is actually crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's insane.
The winning streak that him and Red Bull are on right now. So yes, it's Max, but it's also the car and the way that team is right now.
Mm-hmm.
They are in the zone like no one ever thought was humanly possible. For a team and a driver and a combination to be.
I mean, Toto.
And we're talking, it's beating Ferrari and Schumacher. It's beating Toto and Lewis. Everyone is nuts.
Literally, Toto was talking the other day and was just saying, Max is just in another universe.
100%.
And it's like there's another alternate reality that Max is racing in on the same track, and everyone else is stuck in kind of this one.
Exactly.
And that's just what it is right now. So as a fan, celebrate the.
Are you a Max fan?
Yeah, of course. I've always been.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Always been. Such a too much. But even as a Max diehard fan from the beginning, I always have to qualify that. There's always bandwagoners. Freaking bandwagoners. But even with that being said, as some of the commentaries would say, we want to see fighting at the sharp end. We want to see people racing. And when you're literally at the end of the race, they were having a battle for 12th place that Crofty was commentating. I was like, why are we outside of the points talking about a battle in 12th place for the last 5 minutes of the race?
I got a text from one of my buddies, Jamie, and he lives down the street from me. He's from Scotland. Shout out to Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
And he said this. He goes, Sky really playing up this epic teammate conflict in a battle for 12th place.
Literally? I was watching.
And I burst out laughing because I was like, this is so true. And then he texted me. He goes, have fun making your podcast entertaining this year. If this is what it's going to be like. And it's 100% true. Okay, so I want us to rewind for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
So 2 years ago, we came out with massive regulation changes.
We did.
Okay.
We did.
Okay. And the goal of this was to go away with dirty air and cars that were throwing up all kinds of dirty air and couldn't follow, couldn't race, couldn't overtake, all of this.
Yeah, the whole point was to be able to race and pass and fight and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Liberty, F1, they all get together and they redo all of the regulations. We've got the cost cap. We've got the wind tunnel for the teams that are ahead, get less time. Teams that are behind get more time. And then you've got, even this year, they come out and they go, okay, well, we were noticing last year, well, Max was ahead by the end of the second lap when DRS would kick in. So we're going to remove that. And we're going to go, DRS is now available at the end of the first lap.
Yeah.
Didn't matter on Saturday because he was like 1.2 ahead of flipping Leclerc by the time went past the first line. Like, they're all scratching their heads going, I don't know what we need to do to make this more competitive. And here's where I love all of because we're not professionals, but all of the professional reporters, like, the Will Buxton and the Crofties and all those
teddy
people,
bears,
they keep
all
the
those
teddy bears. All of them keep saying, if you were to take Max out of it, it's a really competitive field. And you've got, even with Checo at the front, we've got battles all over the place. And I'm like, yeah, but we want to win. No one cares about the rest.
But you
we
can't
want
take
the front
Max
of
out of
the
it.
field. Exactly. He's in it. And the reality is that since 2021, the F1 clout and fame and popularity has started to wane.
Mm.
What does this mean if we continue to go into a Red Bull dominant era?
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking when everyone hated the Yankees.
Yeah. I remember that period of time because I grew up a Cleveland sports fan, baseball fan.
You've had a hard life.
I did. But then 2016, when the Cavs won, somehow made it
everything was worth
all
it again.
worth it. But no, I grew up, I was a Cleveland Indians fan. That was the baseball team at the time. They're the Cleveland Guardians now. But I remember how dominant the Yankees were and how their winning ways were so just second nature. It was just a given that it was just frustrating. I wouldn't even want to watch the World Series because I was like, I know they're going to clobber whatever team
decimate
the National League tries to throw at them because it's impossible. And so here's the thing though that's different. In baseball or in basketball or in football, repeats are really difficult even when you've got a dominant team.
Yeah.
Because it is a team sport. Everyone's got to be clicking. Now, yes, F1 is the largest team sport in the world. I get that. However, there are two drivers. And at the end of the day, it does come down to your two drivers.
100%.
And when you've got a otherworldly, out of this universe driver like Max, who is the outlier that's crushing every possible framework you try to contain him in, it's one of those things where, as a Max fan, I'm like, go you, live your best life. As a F1 fan, I'm like,
this isn't going to work.
The uncompetitiveness of the sport is going to eventually be an issue for F1 if it already isn't an issue. It is an issue.
I would argue it is.
It is because it's not a team of, people that are having to beat all these other people. It is a single person who's winning every single race. And
it's one name.
It's one name.
It's one team.
It's one team. It's not, a whole baseball team that's got, 20-something guys on the roster, or a football team that's got 50-something guys on the roster. It's a single guy. And after a while, people tire of greatness, which maybe that says something more about us.
No, I don't know, because even if you think, okay, so let's also be honest for a second. We say all of that, but the reality is for the last 15 years, the championship has flip-flopped between two teams, Red Bull and Mercedes.
Between 2 of the 10.
The problem is, and sorry to all the Ferrari fans, the problem is...
It'll be your day, maybe one day.
2025, here we come.
Oh, 26.
What is wrong
maybe.
with me? Here's Hamilton comes.
26, maybe.
2026.
You're gonna be part of the Tifosi. You know it.
I don't know.
You're gonna be dousing
restraining myself. Okay, so it happened. It's been between two teams for the last 15 years. The problem is that it's no longer competitive. It's never down to the wire. Even in the Mercedes dominance era, it wasn't a third of the way through the season locked up. It was still, there were maybe 2 or 3 races ahead of the end of the season. Not 5, 8.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 races this year. The championship's already locked up.
Yeah.
It cannot be good for the sport.
No.
And it will result in some form of a change.
I think so.
Yes, and that will be a hard day, but it needs to be in a way that keeps it competitive to the point where people are interested. Because that's why we're watching it. We want to see who the best is. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, you're right. It's been quite some time since it's been since 2010 since it's actually been anyone besides Red Bull or Mercedes that have been the champions. So at the end of the day, I think sports is about competition. Sports is about teams that are in the same sport battling for who's the best, for those things, for fortunes changing, for the unexpected underdog stories. You want all of those things in sports. It's difficult when you know the outcome every time you tune in.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, if I know the outcome, it's not competitive anymore. When Max is making everyone else look like you're racing an F2 or F3,
Correct.
and when he's lapping people,
it's embarrassing.
It's one of those things where it's just like, as a fan, I'm here to stay. But guys, he's making you look like you're F2 drivers.
Well,
I don't know what to say about it.
Okay, but let's give Red Bull some credit here. They changed their entire car.
They did.
In a year.
They did. My voice is higher. They did. Of course they did.
Now, granted, they had the ability to start a little bit earlier than everybody else because of their dominance in 2019. They had the handicaps that people have in place.
Yeah.
They had the limited wind tunnel time. They had their, financial fine from too much craft services. And still they came out with a car that is
they still did.
First race decimating.
Yeah.
What else do we do? Like Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, it's not like they don't have the same budget. It's not like they haven't tried to recruit the same level of engineers. It's not like they don't have the ability to win races. All three of the teams I just mentioned are world championship teams.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, with these new regulations, Red Bull just is, it's like they were written for Red Bull.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Is that true?
No. I mean, and maybe I'll mention this and then we can transition to some of the other themes, but I heard the F1 Nation podcast, fantastic podcast, by the way.
Tom,
well done.
My guy, Tom.
They're talking about Adrian Newey, the hero behind Red Bull's cars, pretty much the winningest engineer in F1 history at this point.
He gets 20 plus
Unreal.
Championships to the cars that he's designed.
Unreal. But one of the things they were saying that's really interesting is that he hails from a generation in F1 where one person was responsible for the entire design of a car. One person. And that was what he grew up in F1. Yeah. And so he understands every bit, every piece, every element of that car. Whereas most other teams, they chop that car up into different departments, different people. Right. They've got all these different folks who have one area of specialty. And Red Bull, obviously, they've got a lot of folks working on the car, but it's spearheaded by Adrian Newey, who understands every nook and cranny of that thing. And so I think that may be part of the reason why Red Bull has been so successful, because they have a single person who's spearheading the car design, who understands that car as intimately as possible.
Which is actually a crazy risk when you think about it, because everything rests on him.
Yeah, so, I mean, if he gets it wrong,
the entire thing is wrong.
Done.
And when you think about the amount of drastic changes they made this year, and then he said something in an interview I was listening to that was like actually terrifying, because he was like, yeah, everyone's looking at the side pods and the visible things, but it's actually the things that you haven't noticed yet that are making the biggest thing. And I went, excuse me?
And apparently Red Bull's supposed to be bringing more upgrades.
More upgrades. What?
Literally all the commentators in F1 are like,
what?
Please don't. Please
don't bring upgrades. What are we going to talk about? Anyway, I agree with you. I think Adrian Newey is interesting because Mercedes, my team, we come from, one of the things that Toto prides himself on is creating a place where everyone can bring their part of the puzzle to the table. Where Adrian comes from the camp of, no, I am the puzzle.
Yeah.
And we're going to work this bad boy out. And it's different, but it's working for him in these new regs for whatever reason. And it's not working for everybody else.
Yeah, Tom said that Adrian somehow has found the gap in the regs where he can be creative. And he's found all those spaces where the regs don't explicitly give you direction. Yeah. And he said, oh, I can create something here. Or I can add a bit here. And I can actually, he said that he has a 3D understanding of the regulations, which is phenomenal.
I love that.
Phenomenal.
I love that. Red Bull's dominant. Again, it is something to marvel at in the long run. It's extremely boring in the present. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about someone who was one of my heroes on Sunday. And I have never said this.
Okay.
But I think I like Carlos Sainz now.
Dude, Carlos Sainz is the dark horse of this season.
I love the story behind it.
Yeah.
The
Phenomenal.
guy gets booted from his seat.
Third team he's gotten booted from.
Third team he gets booted from. One team he got booted for the clout of Danny Ricciardo.
Danny Ricciardo.
So big name, huge. Yeah. Next team he gets booted for the clout of a 2-time world champion. Fernando Alonso gets booted for that. Okay, Carlos, you're good, but you don't have any championships.
Yeah.
Then he gets booted from the most prestigious team in the world.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
F1 history.
Ferrari.
Period.
Because of a 7-time world champion.
Yeah. Which, if you got to be booted for someone,
it's
might as well be.
He only gets replaced by people that are legitimately have better statistics than him.
Yeah.
Or world champions.
Yeah.
And so he comes out and he's got something to prove this season.
Oh, yes.
He has something to prove. He realizes that when we look at the grid and all of the drivers that are available, the reality is, from a statistical standpoint, Fernando Alonso and him are the top 2 dogs on the grid right now.
Absolutely.
Easily. And the guy comes out, and the racing he put down
phenomenal
on Saturday was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for, Ben.
Yes.
Like, that is the elbows out, clean racing. He was millimeters from Leclerc. And millimeters from his team member.
He wanted to say, and I heard this in an interview where he was like, well, I wasn't that close. I want to make sure
Shut
I passed
up,
him. And I was like,
you are on the, you sneezed, and you would have flipping touched him.
He was right there. Here's the thing that I love about Sainz right now is he talks to his team and he says, hey, Chuck seems to be having some problems. He's having some problems. I'm faster. Let me pass him. Yeah. And his team's like, yeah, just hang on a sec. We'll figure it out.
Boom, right around.
And literally he's like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to pass him. And then he's like, later on in the race, he's like, I'm going to pass him again.
Yes, 100%.
Here's the thing about it. Sainz did this back in Silverstone when he won last season. Mm-hmm. And there was this moment where the team's like, hey, Chuck's in front. Back up the rest of the pack because we're behind a safety car. Give everyone else, more space. And he's like, no, I'm going for the win. I can
100%.
And here's the thing about Chuck. I know that Ferrari loves him. I know they're infatuated with him. He's their golden boy. Sainz is going to make them look like they made the wrong choice. I think that is his goal this year.
That is 100%.
Is to say, y'all want to go with Chuck? That's fine. I'm going to outperform him. I'm going to outbeat him. I'm going to show you that maybe you put your eggs in the wrong basket. Maybe I am actually the guy that Ferrari's been looking 100%. For. And so that's the thing about him this year. I love the motivation.
I love it.
But I also love that
he's here for it.
Oh, yeah. But he's clean racing still.
Clean racing.
But he's like, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to bury you.
So I went back and full nerded it out. He's very actually reserved on the radio when you notice. Yeah. Like, he tries not to talk to them when he's approaching Leclerc, because I feel like he's just like, I'm not going to even give you an opportunity to tell me to, hey, hang back.
Yeah.
And just drives it right down. And man, I'm going to break out the cliches. He's got a bit between his teeth.
Of course he
does.
does.
He is ready to go.
He's a raging horse.
He's a raging horse. Ready to prance all over.
Dude, but here's the thing, though. He has such a good attitude about this. He could be boo-hooing. He could be throwing his old team under the bus. Well, his current team, but they're moving on from him. He could be taking offense. He could be saying, why are you doing this? Like, I can hold water against Charles. I'm actually more competitive than he is. Instead, he's just saying, hey, I'm going to do my talking on the track. I'm going to show you what I'm made of. And I'm also going to show every other team out there who's looking for a driver that you have someone in me that is going to race lights out every single time.
Yeah.
And this is something that's fascinating that the Sky News team was talking about. They're like, if I had to choose between Chuck and Sainz, I'd actually pick Sainz because pace isn't the most important thing. Management is the most important thing. And they were asked, if you're Toto right now and you've got to pick between Charles and between Sainz, who do you pick? They're like, I pick Sainz. He understands engineering. He understands the complexity of the race. He's saying things that his engineers aren't even thinking about.
Right.
He's strategizing in a way that other folks aren't. And also he's better at managing during a race. Whereas Charles can have that one lap pace, which is great.
Oh, he's probably the best qualifier on the grid, period.
He should have been P1.
Yeah, 100%.
He should have been.
He wrings the neck out of that car on a qualifying lap.
He really does. But he struggles.
Yeah.
He gets emotional.
Yep. 100%.
He doesn't have the confidence that Sainz does, which at the end of the day, that's what you need.
Yeah. It's interesting because Sainz is in a place where he said, look, I'm 30. I'm going to be 30 and it means I'm heading towards the peak of my career. So the next choice that I make needs to be the right choice for where I want to go because I do not want to retire until I have a world championship. If you had to describe Carlos Sainz on Sunday in a word, what would it be?
I mean, I'm just going to say it, badass.
Yes.
I mean,
I would say prolific. I thought he was absolutely incredible. And I think that's what he needed to do to show the rest of the grid that I am not here to play second fiddle to Charles Leclerc. Chuck. I'm not Chuck second fiddle.
No.
I'm here to show Ferrari that you made the wrong choice.
Yep.
And that every seat on the grid right now, I want them coming to me and begging me to sit in that seat.
Dude, he was, I think, the story of the weekend because we already knew Max was going to go and dominate the way he did. That's not a new story. Sainz coming out and dominating Charles.
Yes.
That's something that is new. I can get behind that. And so again, love Charles. I want
nothing wrong with Chuck.
I want him to see, but here's the thing though. Do you feel that there's, if you had to, I'm trying to think how to describe this question. Do you think that Charles has a mental block he needs to get over? Because whenever I see him race, I feel like in the race, there's too many moments that kind of present an obstacle to him that he has a difficult time getting past. Do you think there's something mental that he needs to like be able to overcome or move past?
I'm not entirely sure this year because obviously we only have that one race. I would say
but even looking at last year though.
Yeah, last year I think Max was the big mental break for everybody. Everyone didn't even try because Max was just so dominant and Red Bull was so dominant last year that he didn't really have, you saw it. It's like, I was ahead of him, but I just gave up because I couldn't do it with the tires and I wouldn't be able to do it in the long run. And so I feel like there's probably a mental piece there for him. On Sunday, he had straight up just mechanical issues.
His brakes were imbalanced.
So one side was like 3 times hotter than the surface of the sun, and then the other one wasn't, even lighting up. So he was just locking up all over the place.
So, it was like he was on ice, just sliding all over the track.
Literally. So I feel like Sunday was not. He was probably just pissed on Sunday. Like he was probably just angry. Okay, so Sainz was prolific on Sunday. Back to him for a second. Did you see what happened at the podium ceremony right after though?
No.
So there's this clip of him on the broadcast turning around, and it's just a sea of Red Bull people, and it's just Carlos looking for his team, and no one from Ferrari is there. And that's when I became a Carlos Sainz fan. I was like, you know what? We are going to go and show Ferrari this season that they made the wrong choice. No one does Carlos like that. Carlos Sainz is my new. And I literally stood up and I went, Vamos!
I literally watched everything else besides. I'm like, I don't need to see another podium with Max as much as I love him.
So we're going to watch it. We're going to watch it.
Yeah, we got to.
It was so, I was bummed. The dude literally is like this. Where the heck is everybody? I just got P3 on the opening race against 2 Red Bulls.
That's a disgrace.
Honestly, I was disappointed. And then Fred Vasseur has the gall to come out a few days later and say, this is what I knew Carlos would do. He would take it on the cheek and he would drive for us all the best he could. Yeah, well, if you knew that, why didn't you show up to give the guy a freaking high five? Because you were off licking Chuck's wounds after the race. I'm so sorry your brakes weren't working, Chuck.
Here's the thing. Take it on the cheek that you made a mistake.
Boom.
If you're going to expect your drivers to just man up and take it when you say, hey, we're moving on from you,
Correct.
then when they start to prove you wrong,
boom,
man up and say, hey, he did fantastic.
Yeah.
And the boy that we put all of our future into had a really hard race. And we're man enough to say that. We're person enough to say that. But when you aren't able to do that, that's not cool.
No.
That's not cool.
No.
Can we talk for a moment? We've already talked about Mac's insane pace. We've talked about Sainz and Ferrari. The Mercs. Can we transition to your team?
Cut to my thing of cut to my moment of last week's podcast where I said we are the top of the midfield. And I was right.
And you are. So they were 40 plus seconds back from Max. We thought they, during testing and practice or whatever, were just racing at 80% of their engine capacity.
You know what? And
apparently they weren't.
You know what? To the media, just shut up. Stop giving me false hope. Stop with the whole Mercedes is sandbagging. Toto comes out and goes, "Why would I sandbag?" Like, dude, everyone just.
Wait, but hang on a second. So apparently they made a mistake with the cooling component of their engine. How they got it ready for the race, where essentially their team had to lift and coast, so they didn't blow up the car.
Yeah,
because they didn't get it set up correctly.
Lift and coast is when most F1 drivers, the way that you drive the car is you accelerate all the way until the last possible moment, until you have to slam on the brakes.
Yes.
And then you rotate the car and then you accelerate flat out and you do that corner after corner after corner after corner.
Yes.
Lift and coast is where where you would normally be accelerating. There's a section of the track where they say just let off the accelerator to slow down at first so that there's no power going into the engine, just cold air.
Yes.
So that you can cool the engine down.
Yes.
The reason being is because modern Formula One cars, there's no cooling fans. They're not allowed. So only thing that can cool the car is the wind that's coming into it. So Russell starts the race from P3.
Yeah.
Amazing
qualifying.
Oh, yeah, he's on the clean side of the track.
Yeah.
So P1, P3, P5, all the odd numbers are on the clean side, the racing line of the track. P2 is over there, and which I think is the Ferrari, right? Ferrari was P2.
Yeah. Charles was P2.
So Chuck's P2. It's Max, Chuck, Russell. Russell ends after the first couple of turns. He overtakes Leclerc because of the braking issues and all of that kind of stuff. So Russell has this epic battle.
Yeah.
Where he gets ahead and he's in P2. I'm on my feet. I'm going, finally, Russell, give me a reason to believe in you. And I'm like cheering it on. And next thing you know, I switch to the onboard because I like to like switch.
Yeah.
I can do that. And you can see the onboard. And I look at Russ's steering wheel. And it's just red lights everywhere, dude. Just blinking red lights.
The car is too hot. The car is too hot.
I'm like, that can't be good. I can't read it, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure like blue or green, orange shift, red. But red everywhere.
It's just Toto's face. Slow the car down.
Yeah, slow it down. You're going to blow the engine. And so, get down. And so. Their engines were overheating.
Yeah,
they messed up on the cooling.
They were.
They didn't have enough louvers or whatever, and both of them, the entire race, were trying to just manage overheating engines.
Yeah, that's literally the story. Which there's some optimism there.
There's
a silver lining there
because they were matching McLaren's race pace on overheating engines, which is a lot of.
So there's hope that if they get it right, they'll be more competitive, which is great. I have a question for you though.
Oh gosh.
After the race, Hamilton's post-race interview, he looked really relieved. He looked light. He looked at peace with himself in a way that seemed
very different than
at
last season.
Odds with his results. So do you think that in some way is connected to him realizing this is his last season at Mercedes? He's going to Ferrari next year. Do you think that's connected to that?
I think possibly. I think it's one of two things. I think Lewis is looking down the barrel of this season and he's going, okay, well, the car is either going to be as crap as we thought it would be, and I'm going to be off to Ferrari next year. I'm going to have an adjustment year, and then 2026 we're going to come out.
Yeah,
I'm going to prance my way to my 8th world championship. Okay, there's option number one.
That is.
Option number two, he's going, man, had we had this car cooled down, I think we could have really done something.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it's option number two.
Yeah, or a combination of the two, where it's like
maybe
our car is actually more competitive than we thought, and Ferrari is actually more competitive than we are right now. So
100%.
I'm going to hypothetically the more competitive car.
Exactly. I would say as of now, it's definitely Red Bull, and I would say confidently it's Ferrari.
Yeah, they were 3-4.
The McLaren and Mercedes is still the question mark to me, because we didn't have the full cooling situation on the Mercedes.
Yeah, and McLaren, this isn't a track that they're good at anyway.
Historically, they haven't been good at, which I'm like, how long can you historically not be good at a track?
Yeah, literally one of the commentators was like, a championship-winning car needs to work on all surfaces.
Right.
It's like a cleaning product. It needs to work on all the surfaces, all the tracks.
But then again, Max and Checo are saying Jeddah's not that awesome for our car.
Well, yeah,
so
they're saying that,
probably,
street tracks too, yeah.
There will be some ebbs and flows here. But I think back to Lewis, I'm hoping, but my thing about him was, dude, I need you to stop messing with the car during free practice 3, where you change it because you want to just go the opposite of Russell, and you do your whole thing where you're like, I'm going to qualify lower but make it up in the race, because you qualified lower and you
didn't make it up
in the race at all.
No.
Like it was not good.
No, it really wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so many things going on this season for Hamilton, but the two big themes I think in his life right now are he's leaving the team that he's been a part of for over 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
He's been part of the Mercedes racing program for over 20 years, and he's going to the most dominant team in F1 history.
100%.
So it is kind of like a victory lap. Like some of the commentators were talking about how he was just kind of hanging out in the paddock. Like he was just, even after the race, he was just spending time with people. He kind of is seeing this as his opportunity to say, I'm just going to soak in every single race. And so I do think we'll see a different Hamilton this year.
There's like a levity to him.
Yeah, there is. There was a lightness. Literally, they were asking him how he was thinking about the race, and he was like, well, first off, I feel amazing physically. And I was like, wait,
I'm so glad you feel amazing,
where
Lewis.
Did this guy come from? He's like, I feel great physically. I feel like all the stuff off season, I feel really good. I was like,
he does start every season like that, though. He really does disconnect.
He does
with Shakira during the offseason. Does the whole thing.
He does, which is great. But I do think we are going to see a different Hamilton because of he has the ability to do what most people don't. Is I'm going to spend an entire season with you before I leave. I'm going to have my goodbye tour, and then I'm going to go on to another team. And so, I'm interested to see if it continues, but it was a very interesting and kind of different Hamilton.
Yeah.
Considering that he's essentially a midfield racer right now.
Top of the midfield right now. Yeah. I mean, he finished P7, P6, P7. Just depressing.
P7.
And so I think that's true. I do want to talk a little bit about the back of the field for a second, because it's not exactly what I thought it would be, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
We had, when I say the back of the grid, let's talk Haas, Williams, Alpine, Kick, and our new fave RB. And so across the board, it was interesting to me that I want to start with the one that hurts the most, and that's Williams. You and I are very, very big James Vowles fans.
Huge. They were 15th and 20th. We have to guess who was 20th.
I thought Gasly finished 20th.
No, it was Logan.
Logan
was 20th.
That crazy steering thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, that wasn't Logan's fault. Here's the thing I know you love to take a moment to rag on Logan.
I do.
But Williams has had a tough run.
Yeah.
They struggled to get their car together in time for.
Yeah, they were doing all the updates even up until the last minute.
100%. They didn't get through all of the running that they wanted to during the preseason testing. They used the first FP1 to finish all of their testing.
Yeah, insane.
For preseason, which is a problem when you think about the fact that every other team had an entire week to digest all of that information and put some like into action.
And they have,
and I don't know,
however many hours to digest.
Hardly any. And they've been on the back foot the entire time, and this bit them in the butt.
Yeah.
And so even during the preseason, they had reliability issues, and then in the race they had more reliability issues.
Yeah,
so
they're definitely not in the front foot.
His steering. I thought it was him just being Logan, but it was actually the car this time. But what do you think it's like in the Williams camp right now?
Well, probably tough. Here's the thing. Logan, we know what Logan's about from last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's 19th and 20th pretty consistently. Albon isn't.
Nope.
Albon is a good
points
driver.
Yep.
He is a points finisher. He
would
has
arguably,
talent.
to me, coming into silly season, he'd probably be the third most sought after driver after Alonso and Sainz.
Absolutely. So I think at Williams, there is a pressure.
Yes.
That you need to give your good driver, singular, Alex Albon, a good car. Because he has the experience and he's got the talent now to really perform. And so, yeah, it's difficult because, I mean, I had him on my fantasy team. I was like, hey, even though there's some challenges, it's Williams. Last year, they like really started making some shifts and changes. And James Vowles, he understands the car from the data, from the engineering perspective. And he brought that to Williams, which is why they made such shifts and changes last season and really ended a lot higher than they should have. So anyway, I don't think it's great for them right now, but
yeah, there was a moment when Logan went off because of the mechanical failure of his car and steering. It cut to a picture, and the team they're so savage about this. It literally just cut to James Vowles' face. It was like a close up on his face, and you could see the moment, and it was just he was trying to hide it, but you just saw this. Literally, it was like his color changed from like the top of his head. It just started draining out of him. And I was just like, man, that's a tough place to be. But on the other hand, one of the things that they are saying is that it feels much more developable than last year's car. Last year's car was a sail.
Yeah.
If someone sneezed from the other side of the grandstand, the car would be moving across the track. Like it caught wind like no other. They are saying it feels more balanced. It feels more adjustable. And so I'm hoping that their development curve really kicks up now that they've gotten the first weekend.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're hard at it. So they were a disappointment. My second disappointment was RB. And they got hit with the clout. They got hit with the hype. They could not hang.
So Danny Rick finishes 13th. Yuki finishes 14th. They had a blowout because they asked Yuki to let Danny pass him in the last couple laps of the race. And Yuki's like, what are you doing? Why are you asking me to let him pass him? He's on a different strategy. We need to let him try to chase after the Haas, which didn't ultimately work. Magnussen
and also
finished
because
ahead of him.
Yuki then also in his anger, there are different points in the track where you can let a teammate pass you where neither you or him lose a ton of time. And so
it was like 2 laps where he didn't let him pass him.
Yeah, 2 laps. And also he made him pass him on an extremely awkward corner versus during like a DRS moment where he could just open up the rear wing and fly on by. Yuki lets off a little bit of the gas earlier before the corner. And, he goes down the inside, goes around the corner. It's game over. Yuki purposefully made him go around the hard way, the long way that would cause Daniel to lose more time. Then on top of that, at the end of the race, after it's over, did you see this?
I didn't.
Yuki dive bombs down the inside of Ricciardo on the cooldown lap, locks up his inside tire, goes flying across the front of Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo's like, what the hell is going on? Just turns the corner normally. And then Yuki comes ripping back up on the freaking curb to overtake Daniel Ricciardo on the off lap and cuts across the front of him and almost hits him. Like, the level of like 17-year-old like energy that was coming off of Yuki in that moment was out of control.
Teddy said in qualifying notebook that Yuki is the most popular driver among F1 fans between like 8 and 13.
Amazing.
Now I know why.
Yeah, exactly. He was extremely
immature. That's so immature.
Daniel Ricciardo called him an $1 million. I don't know what that means, but it was hilarious.
Well, this is the tough thing is there was a lot of hype for RB.
Yeah.
We were like, they've got a bunch of bits and components from Red Bull. It's going to make them faster, have an edge. And then, of course, Danny in free practice is the fastest. And we're like,
ripping.
Duh. And obviously it's Danny as well, who's, racing for the first time. And so, 13th and 14th isn't as bad as it could have been. It's a lot worse than where we thought they were going to be.
Yep.
Because we initially were like, oh, they're going to have 100%. An edge on Aston.
Yep.
They're going to be, potentially battling McLaren. That's not what was happening.
Okay, so let's talk about biggest surprise though in the back half. My biggest surprise was Kit. Guan Yu Zhou finishes P11.
I was going to actually say the same thing.
What?
Well,
we were looking at them in FP1, 2, and 3 going, well, I removed them.
Yeah.
As my team. Because I was like, there's no way. I put in Haas over them for points finishes.
He was just ahead of Haas. He split the Haas's essentially.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, here's the thing. So Bottas finishes 19th. Joe finishes 11th. But Bottas had that 50-second pit stop.
Bottas was in a test session.
Yeah.
Because one of the flipping the lug nut on his F1.
They literally had to have a hammer and bang.
What is it with Bottas and like changing tires? Wasn't it? He had the 21-hour pit stop in Monaco where the wheel got literally fused.
Yeah, and they just had to retire his car. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Kick, stake, whoever
F1
the heck they
Sauber, whatever you want to call your damn self.
I am very surprised. Very surprised. And I think that they actually could have been more competitive had Bottas not had his, month-long pit stop.
If he was up there and they were able to play some team games with pit stops and strategy, they could have been in the points possibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think Guan Yu Zhou had the pace to take Stroll, who finished P10. I don't think they're quite at that Aston Martin level, but I was really impressed where they are. I left going, man, are they taking Alpine's spot at the top of the midfield this season?
Yeah,
if
Alpine's
that's the case, that's crazy.
Alpine seems to be taking Haas's spot.
Okay. Yes, let's talk about that. What is going on with Alpine?
Here's the thing. As they always say, more money, more problems.
Hey, come on, Notorious B.I.G.
More money, more problems. They got a massive infusion of all that Hollywood cash and all those guys who are like, yeah, I'm just here at F1 because of the connections and because Ryan Reynolds is here now. Here's the thing. Love Ryan Reynolds. Love what you're doing with Wrexham. I don't know if that's going to work with Alpine. Really funny. I wish you would have picked Haas.
Yes.
Wish you would have picked Haas to go invest $400 billion in, or whatever the heck the amount was.
It wasn't that much.
It was like 400 million.
But it wasn't billion.
No, I just made that to exaggerate. I'm being facetious. I'm being facetious for a minute. But here's the thing with Alpine. They qualified 19th and 20th. They finished 17th and 18th.
Yeah.
They have gotten rid of their technical director, Matt Harmon, and head of aerodynamics, Dirk De Beer. Immediately after the race.
Yes.
They're like, you gone.
No, they quit. Those two didn't. No, they've shifted from firing people to those people left.
No, I heard they got axed. They quit.
They quit. The article that I read, unless I'm wrong, we're gonna have to go back. I'm so sorry.
We'll fact check.
So unprofessional.
We'll fact check.
The article I read is that one of them left a month ago. Decided that he was gonna leave a month ago. The other one now it's just getting announced. But this is again back to my ploy. Back to my observation about them. They are trying to. It's like a really bad presidential campaign where they're like trying to send like press release after press release after press release.
Controlling the narrative.
Controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Bruno comes out and he says, well, I've been wanting to make this shift to a structure where we have someone over the technical and someone over the performance.
I hate when people act like we
don't
don't
rewrite the narrative.
understand what's going on. We're adults. We understand the tea leaves. We can read them.
Literally. And so that's what Alpine is doing. This is the song that never ends.
Yeah.
They wanted more race results. Otmar told them that it was going to take 5 years.
He said 100 races.
That's not good enough for us. We're going to go ahead and get rid of you unless you want to change your plan. He's like, no. I know what it takes. If I want to hire this person to do the aerodynamics, I've got to wait for their contract to be up in 9 months. I've then got to wait 7 months for them to be on garden leave. And then I've got to get them into the company for 6 months before they can even make a real difference.
Dude, they were 4th when he was there.
They were 4th.
They're not just a midfield team. They're at the back of the grid. My question to you is, I don't even know my question is, if Otmar was still there, I feel like things would have been radically different.
100%. Here's the thing you have to understand. Okay, we're all praising Aston Martin. Yes. They are running Otmar's playbook.
Yeah.
Otmar came in and they were funded, but now they have a plan to get to the top. And they're running that playbook. Sure, they've made some adjustments for sure. And I'm sure they've made it. But fundamentally, he was like, we need to hire the right people. We need to get the people in here. We need to structure the team in the right way. And we need to move forward. We need to invest into our locations. We need to get our equipment up to snuff, all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence was like, great, let's do it. He goes to Alpine and he goes, we can do this. We need 5 years. We need 100 races to get to the point where we are 1s and 2s and going for the championship.
Yeah.
They go, yes. A year into it, they're like, we're not going fast enough. And he's like, we can't change the plan. We're on a plan. We've got to hire the right people. We've got to get the right infrastructure in place. We've got to build the right team. They go, you're done. Goodbye. We're bringing in Bruno. It was a year of mediocrity. We are in a place where Alpine they are floundering. They have an identity crisis. We don't know who they are. We're looking at a works team here, meaning that they are complete on their own. It's not like RB where they get their engine from one place, their suspension from another. It's not Haas who gets their engine from Ferrari, their suspension. It's not McLaren. It is all Alpine, everything. Engine, gearbox, aerodynamics.
Well,
chassis,
their engine is 15 horsepower less than everyone else.
15 horsepower and probably like 200 pounds heavier. It's a travesty over there.
Well, last year they were 6th in the constructors. They were 100 points ahead of the 7th place. Mm-hmm. And they were also 160 points behind the 5th place.
Yes.
They're stuck in vanilla no man's land.
They're drowning in a sea of mediocrity.
Yeah.
That is Alpine at the
moment.
Said. And it's depressing because it's unacceptable for a team that has no excuses. They should be. So let's look at the other works team on the field, Mercedes. One of the reasons why Mercedes was so dominant is because they had complete understanding of the engine, complete understanding of the suspension, complete understanding of the gearbox. And so they could design everything around it into their specific bespoke purpose. McLaren gets the engine. Its dimensions are the dimensions. Aston Martin gets the engine. Its dimensions are the dimensions. They have to then design their car around that. Yep. Mercedes designs the car and then goes, how do we make the engine fit in this?
Yeah.
That's different. Renault / Alpine has that ability and they just botched it.
Yeah, it is a very sobering thing to watch a team go from competing really best of the rest. They were 4th place, best of the rest.
100%.
And now
underdogs.
The rest has passed them.
Yes.
And they have sunk. And it's difficult when you see leadership on a team say, 4th isn't good enough for us right now. And Otmar's like, hey, we're getting there. We're moving. Totally. We're getting ahead. And they're like, this isn't good enough. We need to be higher. And now they've sacrificed that position in the constructors for really no pace. And you just see so much instability at the team.
100%.
where key figures in key positions have left. And again, all the PR massaging of the narrative that you want to do doesn't mistake the fact that things are out of control.
Yeah. What do you feel like they need to do? So they're in a place where they're trying to corporatize the mess out of this.
Yeah.
What do you feel like they actually need to do to like turn the tide here?
We talked about this earlier. Adrian Newey understands the car holistically. You can't design by committee.
No.
You can't lead by committee. You need someone. That's your line. You can't lead by committee. You need a strong leader who says, I understand the environment, like a Toto. I understand not all the elements, but I understand how to create an ecosystem where everyone thrives. You need that. But then when it comes to your car, I know you've got three people who are all going to design the car together, all at different elements. Just look at Red Bull. They've got someone who understands that car so detailed.
They've got a dude who looks like your Uncle Tony, who walks around in jeans and a blue polo and a red notebook, dude. Like, you know what I mean? But I agree with you. And that was actually some of the feedback that Alain Prost, when he left Renault as a consultant, he said the problem is that you've got to run it through all of their corporate structure and their 17 different entities before you can get an answer on something. And in Formula One, it just doesn't work. You need someone that's going to go, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get there.
I mean, you need a Zach Brown.
100%.
Right?
You need a Zach Brown. You need a Toto. You need a Christian Horner. You need someone that's got the balls to do it.
I love that. You need someone who's the lightning rod.
Yes.
Who says, I will take all of the pressure that comes. I will try to relieve that burden from the rest of the team, but I'm also going to understand where we're going.
Yep.
And when folks have questions, even when it's within my own team, Zach Brown, his own drivers were saying, what are we
100%.
doing? And he said, I know where we're going. Just trust me. Just trust me. Hang with me. We'll get there. And they did. And so that's what Alpine is missing.
Yeah.
They're missing strong, decisive, singular leadership.
Yep.
So anyway.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Alpine. They ended, 0 points and nothing to show for it in an identity crisis. We don't even have time to get into what Gasly was saying versus what Ocon was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. I do want to talk about the fact that coming into this weekend, there was a bit of a cloud hanging over Red Bull, which was the Christian Horner investigation. And, a lot of us coming into the week were very happy to hear that Red Bull had concluded their investigation, and
they're independent
investigation. Happy to say that their internal independent investigation that involved third parties coming in and assessing the entire situation has vindicated. Actually, you know what? I'm going to remove that vindicated word. They are happy to say that they have found no wrongdoing within Red Bull. They were very specific not to say anything in regards to Christian Horner. They did, however, say that due to the information that was discussed, that no details would be released, which is what we said. Corporate investigations, they're under no obligation to tell us what happened.
Absolutely.
Okay. That was great. So then we go through FP1.
And we're all like, wait a second, we can just focus on racing.
This is so good. I love this.
Behind us.
Let's just talk about racing. Let's look at Max, 22 seconds ahead.
What a lie. What a lie.
What a freaking lie. Because you know what? FP2 rolls around, and halfway through FP2, an anonymous email gets sent to over 150 people.
I heard it was 200.
Wow, that's nuts. So over 150, upwards of 200
upwards
people.
Of 200 people.
Receive an email with links to a Dropbox that has all of the leaked alleged WhatsApp messages,
screenshots
from Christian Horner to whoever this poor girl is. And if this is what happened, and it gets sent to every team principal, all other 9 team principals, all other 9 of the PR people for each one of the teams.
FIA,
the FIA gets it. Formula One gets it. Almost every main reporter in the F1 paddock gets emailed this.
Which, by the way, that's a massive feat that you've got all those folks' emails.
I'm like, dang. Like, this is some straight, like, this is what makes me question, like, is this legitimate? Because it's not like someone was like, dropped it on Reddit. It was a direct email
So
to all of
they
these people.
would have had access to.
So
everyone's
allegedly, there is talks that those documents were leaked. So naturally, the conversation then spares up.
Yeah.
Team principals are asked about it. Toto says, "Look, it's an unfortunate situation where a young girl feels a certain way in regards to something that happened, and we're just calling for transparency." Zach Brown says, "We want to address the elephant in the room. There's still rumors that things are running rampant. We don't want anything to come back on this as a sport, that we are a sport that condones this as a cover-up."
Absolutely.
So blood is in the water, and the other team principals are calling for additional visibility in here. All that's fine. All that's to be expected.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? The part that is really catching my attention is Max Verstappen's dad.
Yes.
Old Jos Verstappen. Michael Schumacher's old teammate.
Former F1.
Father of the current reigning 3-time world champion. Max Verstappen says there is tension here while he, Horner, remains in this position. The team is in danger of being torn apart. It can't go on the way it is. It will explode. He is playing the victim when he is the one causing the problems. Okay, first of all,
clear.
Appreciation for the drama.
It's very clear his opinion. Yeah.
The lack of...
And this isn't some tabloid. This is
a direct quote from Max.
being very, very clear.
There's also a video of Max and Horner having an argument. We don't know what it's talking about, whatever. All that aside, what does it mean if Horner leaves?
Well, you mentioned this earlier about the Horner clause in several key...
That is not confirmed. We don't know if that's real, but there's allegedly
but
a Horner
it's BBC.
Clause, which makes sense.
It's BBC.
BBC has reported on it.
It's not like, the French
it's not
tabloids.
the Daily Mail.
Yeah,
or,
no, it's
Thick as
BBC.
steady.
It's BBC. Some credible sources saying it appears there are clauses in the drivers' contracts and the engineers' contracts. If Christian Horner were to vacate Red Bull, they also have the option to leave the team.
Yeah, so if Horner leaves, then Adrian Newey allegedly has the ability to say, I don't want to be a part of this team anymore.
Yeah.
I can break my contract. Max Verstappen has the ability to say, I don't want to be a part of this team anymore, which is why the conversation with him shows up. There's another video of him and Toto Wolff having a long conversation at the Mercedes hospitality area inside of the paddock, which if you think about why Jos Verstappen and Toto Wolff would be having a conversation, you're not entirely sure. And so, other than maybe my son should come and fill this seat that you have open, that you just lost your 8-time world champion to, how would you like to have a 3-time world champion? Most likely, let's be 4 by the end of this season. And there's all of this rumor. But Christian Horner, if he leaves,
I don't see. This is the challenge, and this is it's just a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lose-lose. We mentioned this a couple episodes ago. It's only lose-lose.
Yes.
The sport loses, Christian Horner loses, Red Bull loses, everyone attached loses.
Well, Ford has now come out and said, not because of this, he's like, not come out and said, but there's now leaks, which generally means that they follow after. That Ford's like, we don't want to be a part of all this Red Bull drama. And we're coming in as their engine supplier in 2026. We were doing that to boost our PR, not to bring us down into the dredges of, people who don't act accordingly. Do I really want to wade into the mess of that? So now Ford pulls out. They don't have an engine supplier for 2026. If Ford pulls out and they go, well, we'll just go get another engine supplier, what other engine supplier is going to be like, oh, yeah, let me jump into this mess with you? But RB Powertrains is not happening anymore because Honda's coming back.
Yeah.
What do they do?
I don't know. It's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
All of it's bad. Mm-hmm. And so without speculating at all, the reality in the face of it is the implications could be significant and severe really kind of regardless of what happens.
100%.
Regardless if the FIA does their own investigation, if Formula One does their own investigation, regardless of what the impacts of that are, there's been significant damage done. And it's if it actually happened, if the allegations are accurate, then that's one thing, and that should be dealt with a certain way.
100%.
If it didn't, then it's just the most terrible, unfortunate situation. So it's just
a man's life could be ruined because of rumors, and that is both are and here's where I both are a reality and a possibility in today's day and age. Let's take Horner out of it.
Absolutely.
Either someone, it's not uncommon for somebody in power to fall into a trap where they abuse that power and they make stupid decisions, and in that moment you should be held responsible for your actions.
Absolutely.
There's also moments in today's society where people are held accountable for things that they actually didn't do, but because it started, that now labels them. And that to me is really frustrating and sad that our society operates in that way. And if that's what this moment is, that person, if they really went to the place of fabricating these emails and fabricating these WhatsApp messages just to politically murder this man, that is unacceptable. And that also should be, as much as the F1 body would step in and say, this is not right, you shouldn't act this way towards another human being. Yes, they should, a same amount of power, weight, and authority go, you should not hold somebody accountable to something that they did not do, have any part of, but they are a victim of this as well. The tension I feel is we don't know where we are.
No, there's no idea where we're actually standing right now. There's still tons of questions. There was a show of solidarity during the race. There was the majority owner of Red Bull. There was
but did you see where Horner was in regards to the majority owner of Red Bull and Helmut Marko and Yas?
It was on the grid though. He was standing next to the majority owner before the race started. Like,
I mean, after he went up and gave the majority owner a big old hug before he went to then Adrian Newey, and then I don't even think he looked at Horner. The body language is, I'm just saying,
no, it's there. It's there.
It's a weird tension at Red Bull right now.
It's a weird tension because people don't know where they're at, and so I think in this moment there just needs to be clarity. There needs to be a definitive response, definitive clarity, regardless of which side that leads us to. It's just either this happened and these are the steps that are being taken to deal with it, or this didn't and these are the steps that are being taken to vindicate. That's it. Just let us go back to racing. Because this unfortunately is taking up a lot of airtime. Teddy was talking about how there's one team, everyone in the grid and the paddock is infatuated with right now, and it's Red Bull. And it's not because they're dominant. That's not what the story is right now. The story
people want the juicy Lucy, dude. They want the goss. And I don't think that's good for the sport either. No. And I don't want to follow a sport that's popular because it's all gossipy. I want to follow a sport that's popular because it's great competition. It's great on track, elbows out racing. That's what got me into this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm frustrated this wasn't able to be completely resolved before the season started.
Though?
No, because I'm sure there's a lot more complexity and a lot more nuance to this. I'm hoping F1, the FIA, if they do get involved, can resolve this soon. But there's no guarantee of that. I feel like this is going to be hanging over F1 and Red Bull's head for the next several races.
Man.
And then potentially the results, could be pretty catastrophic one way or the other.
I guess all we can do is wait and see. It will continue to happen. It's literally all over the news this week. And so it's only going to, the pressure is increasing for there to be an official response.
Yeah.
But that aside, let's talk about something very exciting, which is that Jeddah is this weekend.
It is.
And
Different track,
different vibe. Literally, you could not think of two tarmacs that are opposite. You have a 20-something-year-old, I think it's a 20-year-old track in Bahrain, which is crazy abrasive, to now a brand new track in Jeddah that is smooth as butter.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, and Checo is the king of the tracks.
He is.
Street tracks. So, well, is anyone king when Max is around? I don't know. Maybe he's the prince. But anyway, what are your predictions for this week's race?
I see you're looking at last year's.
I'm looking at last year's just because I was trying to remember who was P1 and 2. And
Max and Sergio.
Won.
Well, Sergio was P1.
Yeah, Sergio won. King of the streets.
Alonso was number 3. George Russell was 4. Hammy was 5. I'm gonna say
my prediction was
McLaren
wrong last week. By the way, I predicted Lando.
Of course, he wasn't going to win.
Wrong. I was so wrong.
They're not good at this race.
No. You can't say that because that was based off of last year's car.
I'm gonna say I feel like McLaren's gonna be on the podium. But I feel like it'll be.
You think McLaren will be on the podium?
I think McLaren will be on the podium, but I think it'll be the other 2 Red Bulls. I don't know which order.
Ooh.
But I'm gonna say that McLaren actually is gonna do better at this one. Now last year they did terrible. Lando was 17th. Piastri was 15th, but that was a different car. They've turned things around. This is the different circuit. I think that this is we're gonna see one of them on the podium.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a bold prediction, which originally I was thinking Lando's gonna top this. I think he was gonna win this race.
The first one, yeah, Bahrain.
No, I'm talking about this next one too.
Come on.
I'm repeating.
I'm not gonna win.
I think it'll go Lewis.
That's not gonna happen.
Max. Perez. Lewis, Max, Perez. That's my top.
I would love it.
It's my top 3.
I would love it if Mercedes can figure their engine out and make sure it's not blowing up as they're driving.
Last year, they ended street tracks. I think Singapore, Lewis was 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, Russell was
crushing until he crashed out.
Yeah.
And this car's better than last year's.
True.
And their cooling was off.
Yeah, fair enough.
Lando's really good at street tracks. So I'm tempted to put him P1. He was
second in Singapore.
Yeah. And Max is great. I wouldn't say street tracks are his thing.
He's not bad at them. Anything is not his thing.
Not bad at them.
Yeah.
I just think it's a chink in the armor. A very tiny, minuscule.
Like a tiny one little chink.
Yeah, like almost like a grain of sand abrased it at some point in time.
Yes.
But it's a chink nonetheless. And I will try to take full. Now, if we were talking about Austria, then it's Max.
All the way.
It's Max all day.
All the way.
But we're not. We're talking about Jeddah. And so I'm going to say
all right.
Lewis.
Hamilton. Okay.
Man, it's tough, but that's what I'm saying.
I'm here for it. And
I feel like that's where I'm at. Like I'm still so excited going into a race weekend, and I can't tell if it's just because I love F1 or like I'm just hopeful that the fight will start at some point.
Well, it's always a start from zero again, right? Like you go to a new track, every team has to figure out their setup. You can, you're starting where everyone's at an equal playing field. There's optimism, there's hope. And you're just hoping Max doesn't come in and crush
100%.
all of your hopes. And so,
100%.
Yeah, I think McLaren can do well. You think Mercedes can do well? Hopefully one of us be right.
Do you believe Max will win?
I think Red Bull will win.
Ooh.
It may be Sergio. But I think Red Bull will be first, yeah.
Red Bull will be first. You've heard it here. On predictablepodcast.com.
We're all predictable these days. We're
so excited for the race coming up. Honestly, we don't care if the season's going to be boring because Max dominates. We're still here to talk about it because there's so much to talk about.
There really is.
F1 still is the greatest sport, no matter what happens and who wins. It is phenomenal.
We're
to talk about
witnessing
all the stuff that is going on.
greatness. We're witnessing just all these teams doing their darndest to get their cars to
Doing
that
their
level
darndest.
of doing their darndest to get their cars to greatness. But yeah, we're here for it. We're here for it.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us this week on F1 Rolling Start podcast. Do not forget, if you made it this far to an hour and 19 minutes and 44 seconds,
That's a long one.
to like, subscribe, and share with some friends. We will see you next week after Jeddah.
See you, folks.